Good evening. I'd like to call the June 2016 General Services Committee meeting to order. This time, are there any corrections, additions, deletions to the minutes? Hearing none, we'll accept those. Privilege of the floor. Hearing none, we'll move on with the presentation. Joel Alone yearly is here to do his, from JCC, to do his yearly presentation from the Center of Community Studies on their survey results. So we're going to quickly turn it over to Joel. And Joel, do you want people just to chime in with questions as they get them?
Absolutely.
Okay, so feel free to have a kind of a loose meeting, and if you have a question, just fire it away.
Sure, that would be great, Mr. Reed. And I appreciate the introduction, but I can't take credit. This is Joel's study, his study. We have. I'd like to introduce Larry Danforth, who's another math professor. Okay, I knew you were. And Larry is actually the chairman of the mathematics department, and this year has become the research coordinator, and I'm the research director, and it truly is a team effort that we tag team on everything, and it's been a great pleasure. So we're going to tag team on the slides as well. We have, I'm going slide 5, he's going to slide 22, and then we're going to tag team after it, and at any point in the first 5 or any of the first 44. If there's something that you'd like more depth on, or even like us to take a shot at that, what do we feel that might be artificially measuring, we'd be happy to talk about that. Do you expect more, where did you go, Mr. Reed? I lost you. Do you expect any of these other folks to be coming in, or? Probably not? Okay. Yeah. Okay. I know we have the southern part of the county and the former southern part of the county represented here well, where my roots are from. So we have 44 slides, and I know you have it in front of you, and we're going to go in order, but if you have any question, please don't hesitate. And Jeremy, I'll let you know, we did toss a couple slides in at the end that talked about that political poll we did, that hopefully we'll have time to get there, because it had some more interesting, I think, depth to that than what just the 2 slides show. So that's who we are, and I think a lot of this you already know, but we weren't sure of the audience, so we put the slides in there that absolutely we are the Center for Community Studies, been in existence for 17 years. If you look, I wonder if I can get this to work. Have you seen a pointer, Larry? Okay, and which button? Red or green? Or purple or blue? Anybody see that?
Yeah, I was up there.
It was up there?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
well, I can at least see the dot right there around the 9. I have to say I'm really disappointed that Mr. Ferris isn't here, because I always test it on his forehead like that, but his MPC. So the point behind this slide is I want you to realize, and you're going to see this throughout the entire presentation, that we have now evolved to the point that we study Jefferson, Lewis, and St. Lawrence annually. So next month in July, Larry will be spearheading the same type of study in St. Lawrence County, and in October we do it in Lewis County. And we decided, so I know some of you have heard me talk before, but this is the first time you will hear a presentation that says, oh, if you're curious, what about for the east? What about for the north? Because it's time that we decided this really is a collective region that so many agencies, clearly including our college, have as a service area. So I'm hitting every button I can think. Oh, there we go. So that's Larry, that's me. And I think I'm pointing at the right thing. All right, I got it. So I would be remiss if I didn't mention the idea that Car Freshener has been a generous sponsor over the years for us, and the college, of course, sponsors, and 2 local community organizations are giving us annual sponsorship that allows us to be able to hire. We, I believe, had 67 students that had applied learning, experiential learning, and got a paycheck from doing the telephone calling and helping with the cleansing of the data and all the processes and the research that they get to experience at the Center for Community Studies. So is it that button?
You're trying to click.
I'm trying to advance.
I just.
All right, so you did it. So I don't know. All right, so I can handle these 2. So this is what we plan to speak to you about tonight. This is what we do at every presentation, every contracted study that we do. We try to explain to people, what do we do, how do we do it, why do we do it, the best uses. We can't help it, we're both math professors. that we're going to try to do a little bit of Stats 101, and then finally the key findings that jumped out at this study from us. Please do realize that the survey instrument had over 70 questions. Please do realize we've done it for 17 years. So therefore, of course, please do realize it would be impossible to talk about all the different observations in a 45-minute segment. But Larry and I pulled out what we thought were the key ones this year. So there are the 8 sections of questions that we asked this year. And those are our standard quality of life indicators. There are 22 of them that we track year after year. You're going to hear us speak about the things that we see. You know, typically we get asked by the folks over here with the cameras 3 questions every time. What's new this year in terms of questions you ask? What's new this year that changed in terms of questions you have been tracking? And what surprised you? So we can answer all of those out of these quality of life indicators because they've been measured the same way, with the same methodology, with the same analysis, with the same wording for 17 years. Neither Larry nor I are social scientists by training, but this is certainly what the social scientists and community leaders like you, I would think, love to be able to look at. So we also, in answer to what's new this year, that section 2.2, we decided after 16 years of never really asking about community issues, we really were asking about community characteristics. Never before had we asked a question that had to do with heroin or opiate abuse, alcohol abuse, poverty, criminal acts. And we decided under the guidance of our board at the Center for Community Studies, it's time to start measuring these things. And I want you to notice that you're going to see slides later that get at perceived severity. Well, it's one thing to say, I think it's a problem. It's another thing to say, look at the next section, personal impact. Have you, a family member, or a close friend been impacted by it? We decided this year to measure these things, and it's time one. It's the first time we've done it, so we're not going to be able to say, it's gone up, it's gone down, and we're not going to be able to say Jefferson versus Lewis versus St. Lawrence, because Jefferson is the first county we're going to do it, but we're going to start monitoring these things. Many of our board members are on many community agencies that you're familiar with, and it was with their guidance to phrase those questions. Then we have other long-term track ones like, we didn't ask volunteerism this year, but we asked some questions about K-12 education and other track things. Some government and political issues, some statewide, I don't think any local political issues. And then these are 3 organizations, the Development Authority, the Tug Hill Commission, and the Disabled Persons Action Organization. I'm sure you all recall every year the last page of the slide presentation says, people, tell us the question if you want us to ask it next year, and we do. But we also extend that to other community-based agencies, so we have 3 questions for them, and as it turns out, it was actually 90 questions for them this year. Those are not longitudinal. So that's what this study is about. I don't dare hit a button. As with any other year, we use telephone methodology. We do it in April. If I were you, I know this is the question that people oftentimes ask us. Do you call cell phones? Mrs. Fitzpatrick called me this afternoon to let me know she unfortunately couldn't make it today, and she asked me to ask all of you the following question. So this comes from Carolyn. She got hit again. She said, did any of you get called in April, on April 11th, 12th, or potentially 13th by us? I'm sure you're not screening your phone calls. You need to pick up those phone calls when we randomly dial. But what I want you to realize is there is a transition. 60% of these calls are represented by Comm people on their cell phone. You have to represent the group that lives in your community now. Sample size of 416, and there's Tony, one of our callers, and that's what the survey instrument looks like. And I believe, are we at slide? I went too far.
You did.
It's slide 8. It's now where?
Okay. You only went 2 slides too far. That's pretty good for you. I should have, but you get on the roll. So I'll talk about the why. So why do we do this study? Again, this study specifically we do to track community characteristics, to try to give local organizations opportunities to look at what people think about their area. And then you can make educated decisions about what you should do based on that. We've come up with, as a group, 5 different reasons why, generally speaking, people do survey research. And Joel has kind of quoted them as the 8th. Okay. But again, how the clients use the data. You can use it to plan for future events. You can use it to advocate for your cause. You can use it to evaluate how things are going for your organization. You can use it for education purposes. Okay, one of the things that happens is when a person takes the survey and they participate, they get educated about some of the issues that we're talking about. They may not know the potential issues that we're having with the water. Is the water being polluted? They may not know some of the other things about recycling, for example. They may not know what's the difference between single stream recycling and source separation. Okay, we talked about those two things. And it's one of those that I don't know how many times the students on the phone had to say, well, source separation is when you do this, single stream is when you do this. Okay, so they get educated. The people in the community get educated as they go through. And the other part we use it to engage the community in the activity. Okay, so there are multiple reasons why we do research. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of introduce you into the education of how do you use all the information that we came up with. Okay, Joel said we asked about 70 questions, 17 years. Do the math on that. You have thousands of pieces of data at your disposal, and the question is, what do I do with all this information? I taught class this morning. I opened up the report from St. Lawrence County because the students that I have in my summer class are going to be the ones making the phone call to St. Lawrence County. I showed them the results from last year. I pulled up one page, and we counted on that one page. There were 60-some percentages on it. I said, what would you possibly do with 60 numbers? And one girl said, I don't know, that's way too many numbers for me. So what we want to do is we want to try to educate people on how do we best use the numbers. And one of the numbers that came up in this year's Jefferson survey was 66.1%. And because you guys have the slides in front of you, you can actually see what that represents. Okay, 66.1% of the respondents said the quality of K-12 education would be rated as excellent or good in the community. All right, and the question that I would have if I posed this to my students, I would say, well, what does that mean? Is that good? Is 66.1% good? So I don't know. I said, well, if you got a test grade of 66.1%, well, that would be good. And they all said, well, no. I said, if you were a basketball player playing in the game last night, would 66.1% of your field goals be good? And none of them had any idea. Okay, but if yeah, you could do that and make a lot of money. So again, it's one of those that is 66.1% good. And what we like to do is we like to try to tell people, how do we use all these numbers that are in the report? And we've got essentially 6 different ways that you can utilize the numbers. Okay. All right, you can look for a couple of different ways to, Joel kind of used the terminology, frame the statistic, and I've stolen it from him and I use it all the time as well. So we talk about different ways that I can frame that 66.1%. Right, maybe it's good, maybe it's not. It depends on the context. Well, 66.1%, how does that compare to what it was last year? Okay, Joel talked about, well, it's 60.1% in Jefferson County. How does that compare to Lewis County East and Warren County North? Okay. How does that compare to the other 21 indicators about how they were responding to excellent or good? Okay, is 66.1% the top excellent or good percent, or is that towards the bottom spectrum? So where does it lie in relationship to all those other things? Okay. So a couple things we look for is we look for within response scales, we look for a trend analysis, something over time. Look for current regional comparison, that's county to county. Look for a relative standing amongst like variables. Maybe you set up a target or benchmark. We don't do that a lot with our studies, but for our clients that we do for other studies, they may have a particular number that they set as a target, and do they reach that target? Okay. And the final one is you can look for what we call a correlation analysis, 66.1%, but maybe when we split it down, if I look at different age brackets, maybe people in their, I think we looked at this earlier today in our board meeting, people in their 30s don't quite look at it quite as well as people in their 40s, 50s, and 60s. And why might people in their 30s look at the quality of K-12 differently than people in their 40s, 50s, and 60s? Well, maybe that's where we have more comparison of students in that particular scenario. So you can break it down. Okay. So we'll look at a couple of different ways that we can frame it. So here are the actual results for this question from the survey. Okay, and you can see there's our 66.1% say excellent or good. All right, now notice that only 5% people say it's poor. So a way we can look at it is, well, about 13, for every 13 people that say it's excellent or good, there's only one person that says it's poor. That's a way that we can frame that and say 66.1% is very different opposed to, what if those 22.2% that said fair actually said poor? Now from 60% to a 20%, instead of a 13-to-1 ratio, we have a 3-to-1 ratio. A very different story that it tells you this. Okay. All right, the next slide kind of gives you 2 of those. We have the trend analysis here, and we have the regional comparison. Okay. There's your 66 66.1%. And notice that that's almost identical to what St. Lawrence County said at 55%. For Lewis County, it's 83%. So it gives you some perspective on what do people in Jefferson County think compared to related counties. Okay, you can see pretty easily in that line graph that there's a big spike in the excellent or good from last year. That 66.1% last year looks like it was down 50%, so that was a 16-point jump from last year, so that's a good trend. The other nice thing that you can see is that poor of 5% also dropped from last year. And so you can see a couple of those different things if you look at things over time. Here's one of those relative standards. Okay, if you look at K through 12, we had 66.1%. We have 22 indicators. Okay, and in this graph, the 66.1%, what we've done in this graph is we've ranked the top 6 excellent or good amongst those 22 indicators, and notice that quality K through 12 is actually the 6th if you put them in order from highest to lowest. Quality of the environment is the first one there. And that's one that Joel and I kind of pointed out, that if you look at quality of environment, it also gives you a little perspective that look at what they were in 2012, 13, 14, and 15 for quality of environment. All in the low 50s. 2016, it jumped up to 73%, 20% jump. What we don't investigate is we don't always investigate, well, where did that jump come from? Why did all of a sudden 73% of people think it's excellent or good, where before it was about half, now it's about 3/4? But we can see that jumping. There's a full listing of the 22 indicators ranked from quote-unquote maybe best to worst if you look at from the highest excellent good percentage down to the lowest excellent good. Okay, so you can see those same with quality environment, 73.2%. So you can see the quality of K through 12 in there at 66.1%. On the opposite side of the spectrum, here's a very similar graph, but this time instead of looking at the top 5 positively perceived, here are the, top 6 I guess we had. Here are the top 6 negatively perceived out of those 22 indicators. And you look in availability of good jobs with the top negatively perceived, notice 43%, well that 43% is very similar to what it was last year, but it's also down 12% from where it was in 2013. So it's, yep. Yep. This one, overall state of the economy, on that slide, I'm sorry. Yep, oh yeah, so 21% said, yes, yes. Yeah, so again, it's not actually very similar to the other good jobs. 21% this year, 21% last year, but again, way down from where it was 2014, 12, and 13. So if you look 12, 13, mid-30s in the last couple of years, then so it gives you that perspective that, yeah, it's 1 every 5, but you look 2 years ago, it was almost 2 every 5. And here's kind of that last one, look at the correlation analysis. What you can do is, in the report, we've broken it down by 5 different potential factors. So you can look, is there a difference in opinion amongst males and females? And in this case, it doesn't look like a huge difference either way. By education level, is there a difference about what people think about K-12 based upon their educational background, or their military affiliation, or their age, or their income? You can take a look and break down and see exactly what's there. All right, so kind of to summarize, what we kind of just did there is looked at 5 of those 6 different things. Okay, within the response scale, how does the excellent good number compare to the poor number? All right, how does the 66% this year compare to last year? Or how does the 21% who perceive the local economy as poor compare to last year? About the same as last year, but still way down from 2 years ago. Recent comparisons compare the results in Jefferson County with Lewis and St. Lawrence County. Okay, relative standing, how do they compare amongst the other variables? We looked at correlations. And again, we don't typically do the target benchmark, but again, you can set that up if you want to. If somebody had something there, we could definitely do that. So as a review, what did we do? We did our 17th annual survey. How do we do it? The typical same methodology we've done for years. Okay, probably the biggest change is a bigger representation on cell phones than we done before. Over half are on cell phones. Again, why do we do it? To provide the community with information so that they can make educated, data-driven decisions. We kind of just went through how to use it very quickly. And what are the top findings? Joel says top 10. Again, it is more like a top 20. And I'll pass it over to Joel.
As I'm listening to Larry, what strikes me, and hopefully it can reinforce what he just said to you, is one of the slides earlier on where I just talked about, and I'm preaching to the choir a little bit, but we at the Center for Community Studies do these studies for the leaders. But we also have groups like the DPAO, and groups like WPBS, and groups like the Office of Aging, and groups like the Town of Washington Comprehensive Planning Committee, and groups like the Food and North Country Consortium. We've done 150 of these studies over the 17 years. And what Larry just took you through is framing that 66.1 is exactly the same process that I would do if the Office for the Aging came up with some number like 26% of the adults in Lewis County, and this is a, for example, number, I'm completely making it up. If 26% of the people said, I don't understand long-term care insurance, well, that 26%, we'd want to know the same framing. What was it last year? What was it in a comparable county? Is it different amongst men and women? Is it different amongst older and younger? If we've looked at, do they understand long-term care insurance, have we also looked at, do they understand Medicare? So the whole point is we really hope that as we deliver to you electronically, this report that, and you're going to have to take over if I can't get this back, but if I go to the full, should I? All right. We have the full 120-page PDF open down here, and that Terry Weller, if any of you know her, our duplicating room, lady just had her minutes prepared in the last couple of days, so therefore we couldn't print the copies on campus. So we have it electronically for you, but we haven't printed those. And again, if you look at that number way up at the top, it's 120 pages. Again, unless you're a math geek like Larry and I, that live, eat, breathe, and think statistics all the time, then I would hope that that idea of those 6 approaches to take, and again, we're doing our students, I have some of the greatest pictures. We had 17 of our students on May 27th at 5 o'clock show up at the Fairgrounds Arena, because the line started forming at 2:30 for Kenny Rogers. And the doors didn't open until 6 o'clock. So between 5 o'clock and 6 o'clock, we had the best captive audience. They're there, they're bored, but they're happy because they're waiting to go into see Kenny Rogers play. So the point is, they wanted us to find out, where are you from? So that's one of about 60 questions, I would say, are on that survey. We surveyed them intercept methodology. And again, I can use, not to be too redundant, but I want to really emphasize what Larry and I, first and foremost, we're professors. And if we came up, we haven't analyzed the data yet. The data's still sitting on a clipboard. There hasn't been time. But what if we came up with a number that said 66.1% of the people who go to those DPAO concerts are from outside of Jefferson County? Now, I know that's not true. You do the same number, you would want to look at that and say, well, what was it last year? What is it at other concert series that happened maybe in Onondaga County? Is it that it's all the older folks who are coming from outside the area or the younger folks coming from outside the area? That's the point that we want to take you through. That there are it's a finite list, there's 6 of them. There's 6 ways to frame a statistic that if you need a more complex one, then chances are you're in grad school looking at some type of data analysis. And it's all throughout that report. So the rest of what Larry and I want to take you through the top 20. We'd be happy to skim through some of them really quickly because we put this together saying some of these would be, we showed the same presentation on campus this morning to our board. Some of them are really interesting to them, some of them might be more interesting to you in your role. So if you want to get me back to the PowerPoint, yeah, and I'll let you. So looking deeper into those core 22 indicators that Larry just showed you, quality of the environment, Larry just had on one of those, we can't ignore it. Now, I can't look at you and profess that I know why. I can tell you I'm really curious why, but we did not follow up with a question of why is it and what is it about the environment that you're so positive about this year? Because you can't ignore the idea of, thank you, but that's almost a horizontal line right there for 17, 16 years. We almost want to throw that question out and say, why bother keep asking it? That's why I don't throw questions out. Because look what happens this year. Clearly a much more positive perspective on quality of environment, But we shouldn't get too cocky with our county for Lewis County. Lewis County folks love their environment. The highest fee that we've ever gotten in our county, hail, compared to 90% of state here every year state. You're seeing crazy right now. No, I can get this answer. Please be kind to go. Why did you put that one in there? Again, look at that stuff. That question says in the last year, did we ask state police? No. Did we ask sheriff's department? No. Did we ask your local village police department? No. But you can see that over time, that's the highest positive rating they've ever gotten, and it's higher than the US. We are finally doing that even well. And so, healthcare access. Why did I put that? I'm trying to hit buttons, but can you talk about that?
Why don't you go before? Yep. Oh, okay.
Access, follow, access, follow. Look at the white chart, access, follow, open up the flow. The whole point is you can see they're very correlated, very parallel. And what you also see is I showed this out and you on some of these results that you guys will bar those on to just like you were asked to by email today. And that's the highest they've ever got of excellent or good for healthcare quality. And is it as high as the other two counties? No, we established the environment has to do something about their environment, about their educational and other children, and about their health care over there, no question about it. But we include this for you because there's no question that has started to move over time. Can I answer the question, why? No. Because the problem is we ask why after every one of them, now the question is going to do it. You can't keep Carolyn the fact they're going to phone that long. We'll be Carolyn. So, well, I might want to retract that. I know Carolyn would say on the phone.
Oh, she would, yeah.
Well, tell you about these questions you forgot to ask, Joel. So, this one, again, don't forget, these are the same people that answered environment, the same people that answered quality K-12 education, the same people that gave us distribution of perceptions about losing pride and control, opportunities for youth, and opportunities for cultural entertainment. This is what I see. The good ed went down, so did the poor go down. What happened is the convergence for the pay. That happened in both of these, not job opportunities, but the stuff you do when you're not working opportunities. You threw that one in there because, again, those kind of look like they parallel with pre-recession. I'm happy with opportunities. Ooh, recession. Last year, recession recovery. Something going on right there in the past year. That's why we do it each year, because it's a gap. All right. Real estate tax credit median is the rate of saving for 37%, is the lowest, lower than last year by far, lower than 2 years ago by far, still higher rate of saving for than the other two neighboring counties, and a lower rate of saving at one of them. But, very stable over time is what I think. The excellent or good rate is no, we keep the values in there. We put that in there because we're trying to lower the rate of saving for. So even though that 37% is higher than the other two counties, you can see it's not higher than what 2 years ago or 1 year ago. You can't deny it. Even though you might want to throw a softball at me right now and take it away. You are trading statistics right now because we're subjecting you to it. So I'm ready to take it. Downtown Watertown is not ignored. This is probably the one spot in the report that Larry and I drew in we are both residents of the city of Watertown. When we do something that are clearly qualified by, could be, possibly could be, suggest a potential, but you can't ignore that is a big, big drop. From last year it was 47%, down to 25%. Last year was the highest rate ever. This year has now gone down to equal to the lowest rate we got before the reconstruction in downtown of 2008, 2009. You know, it looks like the honeymoon of happiness, something happened in the last year. And I bet you could suggest some of the things that maybe rhymes with what word rhymes with factory. Free? No. You know, what we have to realize is that these are people all over the county, and they might not be downtown Watertown compared to the way that you do. But clearly, over the last few years, there was a change in this. Again, if we have a why, no. But if it's beyond this change, clearly right. This is the first time ever. Do you notice the no line chart? We never asked that before. Your question was always local government. The other two counties said we want it as city town village versus county, so we're standardized. And what you can see is, that's the rate of state equity is amongst people. That's the rate of state for amongst your roles. When we look at city town village, very similar amongst the three counties. More likely, there's more happy than satisfaction than dissatisfaction. Is there a little bit of variation right here going on in St. Lawrence County? Well, we can ignore it. There is. Question? I'll give you an opportunity. There you go. Question? Missing body care is not being here. Well, I don't interpret it that way. This is what I see. Good body? No. I'm going to say it. You cannot ignore this one. That is not random chance when you have sample size of 400 times. It is inarguable that, please do realize, that doesn't say affordability. It doesn't say quality. It says what we've been tracking since 2005, availability. However, we've been asking the same way over time, and there isn't any question. I think we would all be kind of shocked if that line went the other way. It's like you guys know how to survey. How could it be going the other way? So I don't think they shocked anyone. And you can see that it is higher than in either of the other two counties, and it's the highest that's ever been here, so we thought it was worthy of throwing in the report, correct? So the overall question we asked, as a sociologist would look at it, other 21 things, and their contribution towards what we think is the overall quality of life in the area, you can certainly see happiness before recession, we've gone down a little bit. I don't think there's any doubt that 67% of people here don't say I'm happy. Excellent or good for the overall quality of life, whereas only 5% say poor, but there's that green bar down. You know, there's no question that these people drop into the woods on the phone. You know, and again, I don't know what's the chicken and the egg, the cart and the horse, whether they went there because they're happy or because they got there and made them happy. We don't know that. I can't tell you what's the other or any type of cause and fact. But what I can tell you is that is of the three counties we studied, the ones that are most likely to say excellent or good, very close to the rate of same place. If I had to, if you forced me to dig deeper into science to conjecture what I think it means, a little bit more intensity in the happiness amongst that group bar. That is a little bit crazier, I guess to call that, or how it's called. That's what we call it. I'm right there. Rough double digits. Number 12. I apologize, the worst graph I've ever made. I would say I'm like estimating that in. But I believe it anyway because in 2009, right? Yes. This is an open-ended question. Please note it doesn't say Jefferson County. So what do you think is the largest district in the nation right now? 81% of people open-ended questions. We then told it in 2009 they got 27. Quite a drop there. So, the other questions in the pie got to go somewhere. And I know it's hard for you to read, but to see it in the table. In fact, I put the table on that one. You just have to believe on this, because you're on the court. Only 1 year in the preceding 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 years we've had. Only 1 year has the percent of the people who said the biggest issue facing the nation is drugs, not as 0%. 2 years ago, 1% of people said it. 0% had ever said terrorism and ISIS, of course, before it was happening in the last 2 years. This has changed, and by the way, government and leadership, and what was the most common thing that they said to us on the phone? It was local government. It was. We did this in April. You all remember that the presidential primary in New York City was April 19th. It was all, Mr. King showed up out on Coffee Street. Mr. Trump showed up further out on Coffee Street. And Mr. Clinton was down there somewhere, I'm not sure where. But it was a real big topic at that point in time when we were talking. And what was it reflected? It showed up larger than ever as an education operator. There's one I talked about before. These young look at this, those are the 5 issues that our board came up with as potential communication. So we wanted to start measuring it in quick order. And we decided to measure how large of an issue we believe it is in the community. And we can measure, use what Larry taught you about relative standing, look what happens when you go back to the mental health was the lowest of the five in terms of perception as a major issue. Right? Mental health was the highest of the five in saying everything that's fun. Heroin and opiate abuse was the second lowest for saying I've been impacted. It was clearly the highest. There is this is young, didn't try her off, so that's the world she lives in, with the healthcare planning for Northern New York. That absolutely doesn't shock her, the idea of she was really focusing on that. Saying that people don't believe that that's big of an issue with them and regular, when you ask, has it impacted you or a friend or a family, this is not going to. Now, we are going to track this over time, because 66.1%. You know, if next year we end up with 20% saying that, it clearly makes a difference when we know it was 27. If next year we get 40%, it makes a difference when we know it was 27. And I know it's going to be remembered, I was so here. I was all right at the time I was reading and stuff. Because I want to interject a little shorter before we get to politics. And I know it's going to remember about a month and a half ago, 60 minutes on Sunday night with it out because it was back-to-back episodes. The first one was about our Congress people doing fundraising in Washington to call it across the street. Anybody else watch it? The follow-up one was Columbus, Ohio, and it was a heroin clinic that was there. And they showed the idea of in the first year having 5 names on the wall, people who were losing died. And that was 2012, I believe. And 4 years later now, it's gone to 3,000. And as I'm sitting there watching this with my wife, they say, well, there was a recent survey done by Ohio State in Columbus, Ohio, where they're located, and it asked, I can't guarantee it's the exact same phrase in the question, but essentially they asked that. And what did I hear them on 60 Minutes say? 20. That framed that number for me. All of a sudden, that 18% said something to me in the wow, in this place where they're really getting all kinds of helplessness there. There is 20. That's one out of every 5 people. So that's why we decided this year to run this new study. Knowing that it's really easy to measure everything we do over time, coming here every June when you would say, here's the question, here's what they changed. Well, we decided with our board's leadership to say, wait, some other things. And I have to tell you, our board had things like racism, police civilian, homophobia. They were all on the list. And the list got shortened because we decided let's do this the first year and see how it goes. And I believe that we will be continuing to look at maybe the things that are not as easy and fun to look at as the quality of the environment. But it helps us learn about our community. That's what I do. Questions on this? Working, okay, great. Minimum wage, we asked that one. Please notice, Larry said to me, within response to this, people are more likely to say, that the actual question said it had all the wording in there. In our region of the state, increase 12,050%, whatever year it was. Is it approved? What do you think is the impact on you personally? People are more likely to say that than that. Not a landslide, but most commonly they say that. I'm not really sure. Other than to say it might help my wife, but not help me, or help my partner. Or much better for my own job, but not better for what I have to pay when I go out to eat. I'm not sure why people said that, but we gave it to them as a response. Okay, great. We asked this one because I have to say, I didn't say we were going to say, I was shocked last October when we asked the same question, improve, worsen, and no meaningful effect on K-12 education, the top score. Green bars were done last fall. 5-to-1 ratio. Of saying worsen to improve. We said, well, let's measure Jefferson County. I hope you all get without grabbing your cell phone. There's a bigger area, there's a deep one. All right, ready? We're almost to the end. Now, we've asked this question. Jefferson County Schools adequately preparing for the youth for the technology and economy of the future. Why do we include that? I don't remember the one that Larry was showing you with all the training and the statistics, that the idea of excellent or good, 66.1%. I don't know why, but it clearly is the case in the last 12 months, perception of K-12 education amongst local adults has been an improving trend, not a decreasing trend. And look at over to our east, they clearly like their schools. To our north, not as happy as what it was expressed around here. I don't know if you remember a half an hour ago, there was a slide that I gave you that had plus or minus 4% on it. That's our hard to clear on this. If you did a quick plus or minus 4, 54, 56, plus or minus 4, 55 to 47, that would be something that we would consider a statistically significant difference. With sample size for basically 400 and 400. I'm ready to see. And that's one that we've tracked, and again, why do we put that in there? Gray bar, gray line. Frame of statistics, 18% of people said, my family, personal plans, and situations, unless 1200 got worse. Guess what? That's the lowest we've ever found. If you can't frame a statistic, then you don't really glean out of there the richness of the information. And I believe our slides,
Last one.
Development Authority of the North Country asked us, as a community organization, to ask those 3 questions. I know that this is something that you have way more knowledge than I would ever presume to have. But I love Larry's example who said that people on the phone would be, what? What do you mean by single stream? Guess what? They got educated by virtue of taking the survey. And maybe they got engaged. Because maybe when they learned what it was, they started to recycle more. I'll tell you what I see out of this. What I see out of this is that 69% of people say, yes, I recycle. By first separation, 22% say I use single stream. But that's what I really see, is that 7% say I don't recycle. Then, which process would you prefer? Because if you use more likely to say first separation than single stream. Then they asked us to ask this question. And the question started with, if there was a key for recycling, I said to Mr. Rice, you've got to give us more definition of what a key is. Because if I had to answer that question, if my key was $200 versus $2, it's going to mean something different. And the people in your town, district, are going to terrorize our talk. So that's the way they came up with the definition of the key. Similar to paying for disposing of bags of trash. That's their definition, and they said, would you, again, recycle only the single stream, recycle only the first separation, recycle regardless, not recycle. What do I see on the page? That number. See, moving on by it and saying, what do I see? That's what I see. It's personal. Someone else might see it as a whole. The biggest thing they say, I'll recycle regardless. That's good. But I also see 7% now. That's a big thing. That's what I see. And the last one is what I know Jeremiah was most interested in. But before we do it, can I ask you to have a question? It's a long and I'm sure you don't know what we're yeah. Before I get to the class, one thing to talk about is very important. I have to tell you that Larry and I know I speak on behalf of Larry as well, and I think the older one, we feel very, very thankful and fortunate that we get to do with 67 too, with interested leaders in the community that actually care, with media that actually shows up and cares, and I have to tell you on May 10th, after several years, what year did you go to? For that presentation?
2008, 2009, 2009.
2008, I went down to the statewide national president's conference and I gave a presentation called the Win-Win-Win Situation. Told all these other professors at 32 other community colleges. We had the Center for Community Studies, you should do it too. Well, now it's 2016. That happened. We went down to a conference in April in Kingston, and we basically gave the same updated presentation and finally won. Her name is Barb, and that's the professor at Douglas Community College in Kingston. And I went back on May 10th and met with their college president, and they planned on finally creating a better community study down in Hudson Valley, because they realize the benefit of the win, 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 win. Larry and I win because we get to have fun doing what we do. The students win. I hope the leadership of the community wins. And I know if Dr. McCoy were here right now, he would concur, the child wins by serving the community. So I want to finish by saying thank you for all that, but then I want to tell you what's really fun about this. There's only one time in our career that we actually get to see the right answer to the test. You do realize that even though Larry said 66.1% of the folks that probably baseball education is actually good, I can't guarantee that's right. We talked to 400 people, we ignored 89,600 people. No mathematician, not Euclid himself or Carl Pearson himself, could guarantee it's right. But there's one time where you get to see the right answer, and that's when it goes to the end. So what we did is the night after finishing the annual survey, we didn't do it publicly, we said it's internal, we want to learn methodology and see if what we do really works. Those two bars right there are basically saying there are 22,000. Republicans in your county, 50,000 that's that. 80% of them said I'm going to vote in that primary on the next meeting. Let's serve as a seat. That's how many people actually voted. There were 4,800 Democrats who voted for either Hillary or Bernie. There were 8,700 who voted for either Kasich, Cruz, or Trump. We took an example of 165 of those voters for Democrats. The bars speak for themselves. We took 260 likely voting Republicans, and we asked them who would vote for on April 13th. As you all know, Mr. Trump and Mr. Kasich and Mr. Clinton and Chelsea Clinton all came up to our county, came to see when we talked. Larry and I were sitting in my house, he surveyed before the game. I wonder if we got it right. I want you to know on the morning of the 18th of April, that's in 6-119, the class of election. I wrote it on a board with all the students what our sample was, and we weighted the data because we had 75% of our sample Democrats were all women. We talked to Seymour, and he said it's not 75% voters. So we had to weight the data. We had to adjust the data. And that's what our prediction was. I don't know if you can see my date. We predicted Hillary Bernie. We predicted Trump, Kasich, Cruz. And then we waited for election day to happen. Came over in my cellar, and we all watched the flips come on TV, and we watched the results come out, and we were updating our app to see what happened in Jefferson County, and I think you probably all remember. But that's what our predictions were. And we missed, by the way, plus or minus 8% margin of error. We predicted Hillary would win by a hair, and guess what? We missed by 1 point, Bernie won by a hair. We predicted Trump would be 58%, we got 57. We predicted Kasich would be 26. Well, guess what? He came up, and he didn't. On that weekend in between. And the point I want to make to you is, it's the exact same methodology we're using on that annual survey that we ran. So you can be confident and ambassadors, I hope, that if you do good research and work hard at it, you know how to do weight algorithms. We finally got to look at the right and see, and we were excited to see that, yes, well within the margin of error. And you might remember that he won huge up in St. Lawrence County. He won even huger up in Clinton County, across the lake, from where he was mayor. When Larry and I were sitting at my house on that Monday night, we're going, all right, but the math is what the math is. That's our prediction. The math. You remember that Trump had not gone over 50% in any state yet. It wasn't until he hit New York that it happened. And Larry and I are sitting in our house going, do we really believe that? Well, it's what the math and sampling says. The next night, we said, yeah, it's what we see. We should believe. So, Jeremy asked me to talk about this. When I ran into him up his house, because he heard rumors that we've been doing some political polling. This was for us to make sure that we finally had a chance to establish who we really believe in the methodology we're using. Questions further on that, Jim? No, I think it's good. We're not going to poll in your district, okay? This was purely on doing does the methodology work. Because it's the same methodology to pick them, whether you're asking them, what do you think about elder care issues, or who you're going to vote for on Tuesday? no more reason you would think that you would get a biased or completely false response from someone lying to you about who they would vote for any more than what they think about elder tax. Example, what keeps me coming back? I've been there 31 years, it's going to be 31 more. And I'll be at the college. And I believe we are there. I'd like to have you wrap up.
Want me to wrap up?
Yes.
How would you like me to wrap up?
I don't know. Because I can't think of anything to wrap up. Because I already said the thank you stuff.
The only thing we have left is, and Joel said it, that we're always looking for questions from, so again, next April, probably next March, we'll be thinking about what we're going to be doing. So again, if there's anything that you guys need in terms of data, let us know. And as you saw, this year we had about 16 questions that we asked on behalf of community organizations. So we have plenty of space in there for anything you guys need. So when next spring comes around, the end of, when snow starts to melt, think about us. And if there's anything that we can ask for or give you information, we'd gladly do it for you.
Some of you might know Matilda Larson. She's in the planning department up in St. Lawrence County. And she's on our board, newly joined member of our board. We wanted to get St. Lawrence County representation. She was at our meeting this morning as we rolled it out, saw this slide, and immediately said, I know we want to ask you a question about bedtime in St. Lawrence County. And we said, well, of course we will. We have no idea what you want to learn, what you want to ask. But help us with this because it makes it a much better work. I don't think you want, but I know your job isn't to allow me and I to have fun. But it is more fun and clearly more impactful on our students for asking questions that really have to do relevant. Not hard to get students engaged and interested when you're talking about who's going to be president of the United States. Not hard to get students engaged and interested about many of those issues in there. And again, a lot of them have decided they're going to transfer out now and major in quantitative math types of things. Even in the center, I don't know what they get exposed to. You only do so many homework problems out of a book. You can't simulate in a book the person on the phone that when you ask them, what is your political affiliation, and they say, I'm Catholic. You go, wait a minute, that's not really the question. You can't simulate that in the book. When you ask somebody, what is your race or ethnicity, that's that. Those are the things that happen and stay with the students for a lifetime. That I wish Mr. Peck were here because, he's experienced it. He was one of the students that did it. And so we clearly extend what Larry was saying. Give us questions, we'll ask. See, one of the things, if you forgive me, one of the downsides that Larry and I will have to do is when you ask a survey about a community, obviously you can see every sector of the community, safety, policing, education, healthcare, economy. We are not an expert in all of those. We can't. If there's anything that we're expert in, if anything, it's good sample design, doing a little bit of math, and interpreting it. But what I don't have is the expertise that some of you might have to say, something like, oh, that number doesn't make any sense, or that number doesn't make any sense. So I'd be happy, Mr. Hickman, to share with you, to follow up with that. Clearly, we have process on all that. So if you wanted to know, like Larry showed you, do the genders differ in that? Do the ages differ in that? You can classify it by geography if you want. We have zip codes. We have towns. We have those things. It's just a matter of choosing an email. We can run further analysis. But I have to let you know that that is one, I do it. I happily do it. But I'm not knowledgeable in these places. What we done with you if you ask me about higher education. So I'll share what little I know. Happily. Are you an expert in recycling?
No.
Well, wonderful. You are very welcoming. Can you count on next year too? Pardon me? She called me. She called me and asked me to ask that question. Who got called? And I can't remember, but Mr. Reed, I think she said she had touched base with you. So she shared with me. just to let me know she unfortunately couldn't make it. Well, thanks so much, like always. Okay.
Yeah, actually, Mr. DeLone, 23 years ago, you asked me this question. What is the highest value of American coin one could have and not be able to evenly give change for $1? I got the answer right. Can you get it right?
How do you remember that question? This is when we got bored at council. So, tell me the question again, the most...
What is the highest value of American coin one could have and not be able to evenly get change for $1?
Hang on a sec, I'm gonna go, I got $1.50 there, and 4 pennies would be down in
Tolerance?
Yeah. The old guy is not ready to retire yet. 3 quarters, 4 dimes, and 4 pennies, and you can't take it out. You put me on the spot there. I can't remember that.
I use it all the time.
Oh, yeah. I haven't heard it in however many years, he said. I hope somebody captured that on film. I just have the time.
I'd like to thank Joel and Larry for making it entertaining, but also making it digestible, the data. Keeping the questions fresh, and a lot of them are pertinent to modern times, and well, all of them are, but some of the newer ones are certainly telling and indicative of what we have to face as a society here in Jefferson County. So I want to thank you for that. And some of them you can keep saying and saying and saying, but when you have data to back it up, it makes it real, and people can grasp it a little better. So thank you for taking the time, and thank you for your exuberance for the topic. I went back to Mrs. Barbalick though, so that's I still remember mean, median, and mode, so I took that with me. So, Joel, I had to say it.
I'm pretty sure we're going to hand the pointer to some other people to take charge next week. And
why is that?
Next year, we're just going to sit here and let you guys present, because we have such talent here, I can see.
Thank you, Joel.
Okay.
Thank you, Larry. We are going to pull Resolution 2 off the agenda tonight to provide the committee and board members opportunity to ask more questions and get a better understanding of what that topic's about. So we'll go with Resolution number 1.
Authorizing agreement in relation to the State Alternatives for Incarceration Pretrial Release Program funding.
May I have a motion, please? Mr. Maxon, Mr. Jarl, discussion. All in favor, aye? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. In your packet, you have the Weights and Measures report. We did send out a briefing about the outboarding numbers. Good news is that we budgeted outboarding at $400,000, and through May we're at about $112,000. Hopefully that trend continues. Any questions, please feel free to fire them away or whatever. Anything else to come before the committee? You're not going to have a motion adjourned? Mr. Tolholm, Mr. Maxon, have a great evening.